What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are actually installing the track exhaust from AWE. Now, how I'm going to be doing that in the garage rather than on a lift is by first rolling the car onto ramps. After we get the car rolled onto the ramps, we're going to go in the rear, lift up the rear from the back center lift point, and then put two large jack stands on each side, and then start the process of installing the exhaust. All right, cars on the ramps, cars on the stands, we're good to go. But first, we need the instructions. So what they provided us here is not really a pamphlet, like a booklet about how to do it. You are provided with zip ties, which we'll get to that later in the process, but you're also given a little pamphlet, I guess. There are two ways to go about installing your new kit. The easy way, scan this QR code, follow along with the detailed instructions we made you. Or the hard way, don't scan this QR code, ignore the AWE fitment guarantee, and roll the dice. Before you do, you should know that 98% of reported fitment issues are from people who did not scan that QR code and follow the awesome instructions. Our advice, don't become a statistic, scan and read. Okay, you heard it here first from AWE's pamphlet, don't be a statistic. So we're not gonna be a statistic. I already scanned the QR code, and I will be displaying on screen throughout the steps, throughout the process, each step that we're going to be taking now that we have the car jacked up. To kick off step one, we're going to unplug the OE valve motor. So all you gotta do to remove it is just press on this tab where my thumb's at, press it down, and then just kind of pull this away. Now, one thing the instructions don't tell you to do is to remove this cable from the bracket that's on the exhaust right now, because obviously this cable is connected to the car itself. So what you're going to want to do is, you see this little divot right here? There's two little protrusions right here. You're going to want to press in on those on both sides, and I'm using a flat tip to get to the left side, where I'm just going to use my finger on the right side and just kind of wiggle that up, and then it'll be fine from there. You just remove it after you push those in. So we're going to do that really quick. Very easy. So I did exactly what I said, just stuck a flat tip in the left side, pressed on it, with my thumb on the right side, and then just lifted this out. So now we're on to the next steps. All right, next up, got to get down under the car and remove these two flange bolts. So there's the spring right here and then one on the other side. These are going to be 9/16, and we might need a breaker bar, so I brought a breaker bar, but I'm just going to go ahead, use a ratchet for now, see what happens. So break those loose, take those off, and then we'll get to the next steps. All right, got those out, and now it's time to move on to removing these from the bushings. So as you can see, here's one of the bushings near the resonator of the stock exhaust. Here's another one for the right side, another one for the left side, and then right up here for the center. Got the first one off by the flange, and that was incredibly easy. All you're gonna do is basically just take one hand, kind of just pry it, and that's pretty much it. You just pry it off, really. They're soft enough to where you could do that, so pretty easy. Let's get to the rear. Let's get done with these side ones, and then this center one up here. Okay, something that I'm actually doing now is using the jack to hold up the muffler, because this side's off, while I get up the center and the left side. So should probably do that as well. Okay, so this center one was a bitch to get out. So I ended up using some silicone, put that on the hanger, and just kind of pressed it out, and as well as putting that one back on for now. So we're going to take that one off again and remove the entire exhaust. All right, so here it is, the stock exhaust with the big freaking muffler. Not too hard to get out, to be honest, just that one center bushing that you need to be mindful of, but here it is. All right, so now that we removed the exhaust, that's the end of the procedure step number one. Procedure number two is to remove the valve and the bracket. So how we're going to be doing that per the instructions is by only removing the larger of the three bolts here. So you're just going to leave the valve itself onto the bracket. So you're just going to remove these, this one, and that one with a 1/2 inch socket. Okay, so next step is to have your midsection, whether that be for the track or the touring, have that available. Take off the front bushing. You're gonna have that to put onto this, and then take the springs from the old flange bolts, take the springs and put them on the new supplied bolts. All right, back under the car. First step, put these back on and just thread these on, and then after they're just on, so they're secure enough to where they won't fall out, we're gonna put on the rubber bushing to hold it in place the rest of the way. All right, so I was gonna do it with putting the bolts in first, but that feels a little bit weird. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna attach the hanger to this first and then attach the bolts from there. It just feels like a safer idea, so we'll see how that goes. All right, so we got this in place now. It's time to move on to the next step, and we'll come back to tighten all this down. All right, so next thing we have to do is put the valve onto the bracket right here. They're supposed to have bolts for this, but I don't know, they gave me zip ties instead, so that's cool. They might be just making new ones, I don't know, but we might buy our own eventually. But for now, this is what we got, so that's our next step. All right, next up, we're gonna be installing this. So how we're gonna be doing that is first taking your 3-inch clamp, putting it onto here, leaving it there until we put it onto the front section. All right, now that we're under the car, obviously we're gonna be reusing the rubber bushing for the bracket and gonna be putting this all the way onto there until it stops. And then also reinstall the valve connector. Okay, so this is how it looks when it's properly in place. Got this inserted. I'm going to be pushing it in a little bit more, obviously. Haven't plugged in the connector yet, but I just wanted to show you guys this. You're going to want to push this in as far as possible till it stops, and then pull your clamp over and then tighten this down. Now I recommend having the nut facing like downward like this. Just tighten this down enough to where it's still a little bit loose, but it's not going to let anything off. So you want to tighten every clamp because there's going to be more clamps up here as well. We'll tighten everything down at the end of the video, including the clamps. But if you have that clamp on there, you have this on, you have that plugged in, then let's move on to the next step. Oh, and one thing to note before I move any further is that the clamps, these clamps right here, the 2.5s and the 3-inch, are tightened down with a 5/8. I don't know if you can read that. There we go, 5/8. So with the driver and passenger side parts of this exhaust system, F82 is going to be for the driver's side, F83 is going to be for the passenger side, and this little clamp kit is going to be specifically for the driver's side unit. So I'll show you what we're going to be doing with these soon, but basically what we're going to do is on the outer hanger bushing for this, we're going to put one of these on the inside, so like right here, and one of these on the outside, and tighten both of them down, assuming that this is going to be the outside, but we'll see, the outside bushing. So I'll show you how that looks in a second. And then obviously these clamps are going to be going on here because they're going onto the outer exhaust system that we just installed. Okay, so with this partially on, we're going to be taking these and slipping them onto the most outside. So we're going to be putting one on the inside. We'll probably turn it so that we can actually get to the screw. Now, or put these into our bushing. So we'll do that really quick, and then I'll show you how to put on the other one. Now that we got this inserted into the bracket, or the bushing on the bracket, and this is as pushed in as possible, we're going to be putting this one onto here. And then just go ahead, tighten these down, and you should be good to go there. Okay, now with this on there snug, but not fully tightened, and these tightened, it's time to put on the passenger side, which is literally the same process like as this entire thing, except none of these. So these are only for the driver's side. So let's do the passenger side, and then we'll get on to putting the tips on. All right, now that these are all in place, all we have left to do is put on the tips and tighten those down, and then we'll tighten up the rest of it. All right, so with the tips, they give you these bolts to use with them, bolts and nuts. You're gonna be putting the bolts onto the top, just setting them in there, and the nuts, you're gonna thread them in from the bottom. And that's how these are gonna clamp on to the exhaust system. And for reference, these are gonna be using a 7/16 socket. So yeah, that's not called out in the manual, that's why I'm letting you all know too. All right, so got all these on, and they're not tightened down yet because I'm still gonna adjust them, which I recommend you guys do, adjust them to your liking. Now, what I'm gonna be doing first though, before I start adjusting these finally, is tightening down all the clamps and making sure everything else is tightened under the car so that these are gonna be in the place that they will once I tighten these down. The first things you should tighten down before moving on to the clamps or anything else are these flange bolts. So fully tighten these flange bolts with a 9/16 inch socket or a wrench, whatever you got, then move on from there. All right, now that you have the flange bolts tightened down, go ahead, tighten down the rest of your clamps. Make sure that everything's seated properly before you tighten them down, obviously. And make sure the exhaust tips are how you like them, where you want them a little bit pushed in. There's a little bit of mobility there, or adjustability there, but you can push them in and out a little bit, and then tighten those down, and you're good to go. Anyways, I hope this helps, and if it did, please leave a like, leave your comments in the comment section down below. Be sure to subscribe if you're not subscribed yet, and ring the bell so you guys will be notified of further content coming here soon. I will also have a exhaust before and after video here for the track exhaust, between the track exhaust and the stock exhaust. So be on the lookout for that. If it's not at the end of this video, I will post it in the description down below at some point, or just check it out on my channel if you get a notification by ringing the bell. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.